How are
Hello,
you?
what's going on? Welcome to the Castro Files, everybody.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight again for another Castro Files.
Something good on the books?
I've got an interesting one tonight.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of make you wonder if you should ever go hiking.
Oh, okay.
In a national park anyway. And like go hiking in your local little trails, but going out in the national forests and stuff like that, national parks, there's something interesting going on out there.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about like just bears and stuff.
You're not talking about Bigfoot?
Maybe I am talking about
okay.
Bigfoot or aliens or just weird
The unknown.
people disappearing from national parks. It is an actual thing. So before we get into that, go ahead and like and subscribe to the Castro Files channel if you don't mind. Give us a 5-star review out on iTunes and Spotify, of course, and leave a review. Spotify, you don't have to leave a review. You just hit the little 5-star and then move along about your day.
There you go.
We appreciate that. But if you like to listen to it on the audio versions, absolutely. We're pretty much on everywhere you can get. So.
We're on the places.
Yeah, we're on all the places.
Yeah.
So check those out if you don't mind.
And share.
Yeah, absolutely.
Share our podcast.
So this is a fun one that we started doing a while back. That just kind of like, gives us, it's all the creepy little weird stories out there.
We have a hobby that is the paranormal. Mm-hmm. So we decided we love it. Let's talk to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So today let me get into this story.
Yes,
here.
please.
So again, like I had mentioned, you go out for like a hike. Like I know people that have done like that. Like I have a friend that's done the Appalachian Trail and it takes months to do, right?
Yeah.
These stories that I'm going to talk about are things that happen like on a day or two or 100 feet from camp kind of situations, right? Where people just disappear.
Interesting.
Or something happens and you're just like, how could that happen? But before I get into that, I want to jump in and just give some stats real quick. So this is from culturetrip.com. And people are disappearing from national parks, and the reason may surprise you. So from Yosemite to Grand Canyon, some of America's crown jewels are at many national parks, but there's a darker side to this unspoiled and stunning wilderness. The fact that since the National Park Service was set up in 1916, over 1,000 Americans have vanished without a trace on its grounds. Just to say that these people are gone, or just where have these people gone? In many cases, it's difficult to say. The National Park Services leaves it to local law enforcement to track and solve or file away as cold cases of people who have gone missing. And since there is consequently no federal database of people who have disappeared on these federal lands, it's difficult to track any trends or commonalities in their disappearances. Of course, some of these cases of missing persons can be explained by tragic accidents that are inherent risks of exploring the great outdoors, such as succumbing to an animal attack, falling from a peak of a mountain, or being exposed to extreme weather. But as for the rest, cryptozoologist and former police detective David Paulides has a different theory. Paulides was interested in all the cold cases involving the National Park Services and began compiling and sifting through what data he could collect to look for trends. What he found intrigued and disturbed him. Paulides was particularly interested in cases where people appeared to simply vanish into thin air. He noticed that in many of the cases of these missing persons, there were search and rescue dogs brought in to investigate the disappearance who either could not or would not perform their typical duties. So the dogs just couldn't.
They wouldn't sniff.
They just wouldn't be able to find them. There were a number of these disappearances that happened by near berry patches and boulders, and still more which were found at much higher altitudes than those at which they had disappeared. So they literally were here, they disappeared, and now they're 12,000 feet up.
They were at 1,500 feet. Now they're at
somewhere they should not be, right? So in one such case, a toddler was found 12 miles from where he vanished, over 2 mountain ranges and numerous creeks. How does that happen?
Yeah, I can't do 12 miles.
And let alone a 3-year-old, right?
That has to take 5 steps to my every one.
Right. What does Paulides think happened? He is a believer of Bigfoot, a hybrid between a human and a black bear, and points to the mysterious circumstances of these unsolved cases as potential evidence for these creatures' existence. Others point to the Wendigo. We've talked about the Wendigo. Or Wendigo.
Yeah.
An evil spirit from Algonquin folklore who terrorizes woods and forests. Of course, there are plenty of skeptics of the paranormal theories of these disappearances, but whether you believe them or not, it certainly goes to say that the unsolved cases in America's national parks are enough to make you think twice before packing your bags for a trip. So that's just a little bit of kind of background on what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So this story is from People Missing in the Woods by Stephen Young. And it's going to be a few different stories, examples of exactly these things happening.
Cool.
Now, one of the stories, again, is some sort of accident occurred. But the other ones are you're just like, what happened?
Yeah. Unexplained.
Unexplained.
Or unexplainable.
Still yet to be explained.
Yes.
Right? Excuse me. So we're still, bear with us while we go through these.
Still getting over these allergies.
Fighting the good allergy fight. So, chapter 3, this is from chapter 3 of People Missing in the Woods. Missing doctors and missing scouts. In June 2011, Dr. Michael Van Gortler and his daughter, 20-year-old McKenna, had gone to San Isabel National Forest in Colorado to hike. Dr. Michael was a 53-year-old ER physician, and his daughter was studying medicine at the University of Colorado. They had gone to Missouri Mountain on the day of their on a day of clear, calm weather. There we go. This was not their first hike. They had hiked together on many occasions. The father and daughter were last heard from on June 21st. When McKenna sent a text to her boyfriend telling him she was going hiking up the mountain with her father. They were due back 2 days later. Her father was due to work in the emergency room in Boulder on Sunday. By Tuesday, his ex-wife, McKenna's mother, had called the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office to report them missing. After failing to get a hold of her daughter, rescuers launched a massive five-day air and ground search after finding their vehicle parked at the mountain's trailhead. Their bodies were found 8 days later. Their bodies were found in a steep terrain about 500 feet above the main trail, at an elevation of 12,000 feet, on the northeast side of Missouri Mountain within the forest. Chaffee County Sheriff W. Pete Palmer told Reuters, he said, "It's unclear how they died." Sheriff Palmer said it had been one of the most extensive search and rescue operations the county had ever done. Over 200 rescuers searched the mountains. The search lasted for 5 days and consisted of 18 search and rescue teams, along with dogs, the sheriff's office, the fire department, and 2 National Guard helicopters. A military helicopter pilot dropping off a ground search and rescue team spotted what looked like 2 bodies. The coroner later reported they both died from blunt force trauma to the head and neck. They had been found with catastrophic face and head injuries at the bottom of the cliff. Relatives told 7 News they were likely blown off a cliff. Coroner Mr. Amedis said that the conditions of their bodies indicated that they had died on the day they set out on their hike, and added that no crime had been committed. Their deaths were, quote-unquote, an accident. He said their injuries were not consistent with falling, though.
Okay.
McKenna's aunt, Suzanne Katz, said Michael was a survivalist and always prepared with water, fire-building equipment, and food every time he hiked, describing him as obsessive. When it came to preparing for their hikes, she said he always made an exhaustive list of what to pack, including collapsible containers for collecting additional rainwater. He even once published an article on finding water sources in the backcountry. So we lived in Colorado for several years. People that hike those 14ers, right? Those big ass, like there's, I don't know how many, there's dozens of those peaks. They are experts.
I was going to say they're very knowledgeable.
Right, because you get up to a certain altitude, you can't breathe that well. Right. It's a lot harder to think. You get foggy. So these folks know what they're doing. And if you're hiking in those areas, you know it. You don't just go out. Right. Especially to hike 2 or 3 days.
No, you're going to do a 3-mile hike if you're just starting.
Yeah, exactly. Like around your house or something, right?
Right.
So McKenna's aunt, like I said, he said, already said that. The doctor had taken his daughter out on hikes ever since she was a child. McKenna's cousin, Nicole Box, told 7 News that they were very experienced hikers and added they were both very prepared for the climb. It was believed that they had taken with them fire-starting equipment, water purifiers, and dehydrated food. Interestingly, Sheriff Palmer said, "It's a mystery that so many people take that trail and we hadn't had word of people seeing them. The last person known to have seen them alive was at around 11:30 a.m. on the 22nd, and the hiker was Jared Bird. He said, "People are always up in the mountains having a good time and hiking. It was a nice day, and I just thought that they were going to be out for a nice hike. But I think in the future, I'm going to start warning people about being up on the mountain later in the day. You know, it just kind of goes to show that anything can happen in the mountains." After being described as obsessive when it came to preparing adequately for their hikes to ensure their own health and safety, and having been a hiker for so many years, doesn't it seem a bit odd that they both mysteriously fell off a cliff? We now come to another strange case involving a doctor. Trainee doctor Rachel Bagnall, 25, and her boyfriend, Jonathan Jett, 34, of an attaché for the government of Quebec, both disappeared when hiking in rugged terrain. So this is the first photo that will come up. The Vancouver resident vanished into, or maybe not. I got the wrong one. So you can turn that one off for me, please. The Vancouver resident vanished into thin air after they left for a 2-day hike in the area around Cassiope and Saxifrage Peaks.
Bless you.
In the mountains of North Pemberton on September 4th, 2010. The trail itself passes through some amazing forest. 2 days after they were expected back, authorities found Jett's car parked on the Spetch Creek Forest Service Road. A pair of sunglasses believed to be the trainee doctors were found shortly after. As 5 search and rescue crews were combing the backcountry for the couple, a team located a pair of sunglasses believed to belong to Bagnall, but no other clues turned up. Jett's 4-door Toyota Echo contained his cell phone, records showing that he made no calls after September 3rd. An extensive air and ground search was conducted for the hikers, involving helicopters working 3 at a time. Numerous search and rescue and police teams also scoured the mountainous region, but there was no trace of them. Repeated searches of the area they were believed to be in turned up no evidence at all of where they could be. No backpacks, no tents, nothing. Rachel was wearing a bright red and orange jacket. A relative said that a receipt for a newly purchased axe was found in their vehicle, but they were unsure whether exactly what other equipment the couple brought with them. Tim Lee, who was helping coordinate the search and effort, said, "Our goal was to establish direction of travel." Jonathan Jett's father spent over a week in the Pemberton area, continuing to try and find any clues he could about what happened to his son and his son's girlfriend. Bank statements revealed that their last purchase was made on Jett's card at the diner Tim Hortons on Monday, September 4th. That was the last time any digital trace of them could be found. Police searched their homes, hacked into their Facebook accounts, checked cell phone records, searched their computers. No red flags were ever raised anywhere. The families of the missing couple spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on private searches, including hiring a group of highly experienced mountain guides to survey the area in hopes of finding evidence of their whereabouts. It was believed that they had sufficient water, food, and other supplies to last 2 or 3 days, should they be gone. RMCP, so that's the Royal Mounted Canadian Police, sent a request out to anyone hiking in the Cassiopeia Saxifrage area through the Spetch Creek or Valentine Lakes area. You know what? I do have a photo. Can you pull the photos up real quick? I think I just got them out of order for this one. Go to the next one, please. And by the way, we have a guest producer on the show.
We do. We're spoiled today.
Yeah, thank you very much. One more over. This is the start of the Spetch
That's
Canyon.
really pretty.
So it's a beautiful, just think of, it's Canada.
Right.
So it's very mountainous,
Green.
a lot of forest,
Yeah.
thick forest and stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
Love the bridge.
Thank you very much. So the police, helicopters, SARS dogs, all searched for them for 10 days and didn't find anything.
Wow.
Just Jonathan's car parked on the road. Volunteers continue, and last summer we hired 3 pros who searched ravines, the glaciers, and we did not find a clue. I asked myself many, many questions, his mother said. We don't know what happened in this incident, said RMCP Leclerc. The fact that 2 people went missing is very unusual. At the spot where Rachel's sunglasses were found, it's almost as if the missing couple were just snatched right up. Our goal is we want to establish direction of travel, search organizers had said. Why is it so hard to find out which way they had gone, though? Now, yet another case involving a doctor. 63-year-old
doctors. Apparently, doctors should not go hiking.
Doctors and scouts. That's the name of the story, right? Now that yet another case of 63-year-old Joe Elliott Blakesley. So this will go back to the picture number 1 here in a second when you get a minute. Blakesley was a physician in the Snake River Correctional Institution in Ontario, Oregon. So this is, right there. Her companion was 69-year-old retired teacher Amy Linkert from Idaho. They'd met through their devoted work as missionaries. In September of 2013, they had gone to Crater of the Moon's National Monument, which is the photo you're seeing now, in the Snake River Plain in Idaho. They were last seen on September 19th. They were reported missing on September 23rd. When coworkers of the doctor called police because she had not arrived for work that day as scheduled. Officials believe the pair went only for a short hike at Craters, where their pickup was found, as were their cell phones, purses, and their dogs were still inside of their car.
Oh, geez.
On September 26th, newspapers reported that one of the 2 women had been found dead. Butte County Public Information Officer Tracy Weaver said 63-year-old Elliott Blakesley appeared to have died from exposure. At first, Butte County deputies and park rangers believed that they had found the doctor's body, but dental records confirmed it was in fact Linkert instead. So it was the other friend. Okay. Park Superintendent Dan Buckley said the Idaho National Guard and the Butte County Sheriff's search teams found the body by helicopter on a rugged part of the lava field. So when you look at the pictures and stuff of this, it is just huge, vast, just think desert of lava.
Okay,
like
the rocks, the
black
rocks.
rock. You remember in Phoenix, like just sun-baked, it's super scratchy and itchy and everything. I mean, it's just,
hurts.
It'll tear you up. Yeah, so you can see the photo again. It's just very desolate. There's no water. There's not a lot of anything. The longtime Minneapolis special education teacher and missionary had purchased a camper van as a retirement gift and had plans to take such trips as the one she was now missing from. She was very happy and excited about going on this trip, her younger sister, Margaret Poirier, said. As searchers continued to comb through the rocky terrain with a helicopter, dogs, and 70 volunteers looking for her companion, Park's spokeswoman, Lori Iverson, said Linkert had been dead for a few days when her body was found.
Wow.
Maybe Joe was injured, and they found a place for her to hunker down while Amy went for help and grew disoriented in the dark, said Iverson. It's like an ocean of black lava rock, and there's no landmarks.
Mm-hmm. So dark, I bet.
Right. More than 50 searchers, including 8 dog teams and a crew of 21 firefighters, as well as 2 Black Hawk helicopters, continued the search for the other missing women. Wait till you hear the end of this. Focusing on the search in 5 square miles near the Tree Molds, Broken Top Loop, and Wilderness Trails on the south end of the monument. They left the trail for some reason, and a tragedy occurred, Linkert's sister said. My heart goes out to Joe's family. Our family is concerned and distressed that they can't find her. Unfortunately, the search for her was partly carried out during the government shutdown, although Ted Stout, a spokesman for the park, said 3 of them were still working, searching for the missing women. Park officials had asked for and been given a waiver to enable them to keep 10 trained rangers on hand for the ongoing search, along with a 3-person skeleton crew, although none of them knew if they would get paid. This kept working. Right. Caving experts joined the search, expanding the search into hundreds of caves in the area.
Wow.
On October 23rd, newspapers reported search crews have finally found the body of Idaho hiker Dr. Elliott Blakesley. Rescue workers aboard a helicopter found Elliott Blakesley's body about a mile from where they found the body of the other hiker.
Not that far.
A mile. It's not that far.
That's not that. Yeah.
Why did it take them so long to find her body when it was in the exact area that they had been searching for months?
Was it not there before, and then it?
How did it just
had people looked in that area already?
You think?
I mean,
right?
It would make sense, right?
These are professional search and rescue people.
Interesting.
Right. How did these terrible deaths happen? They must surely have only been intended to go for a short walk because they had made the decision to leave their cell phones in their car, their belongings, and most importantly, their dogs. They had clearly not intended to be away from their car for that long. How did they become separated by a mile between them? Interestingly, the doctor had been an officer in the Naval Reserves, retiring with the rank of commander in the 1990s. Their family said that they were convinced the pair wouldn't have headed off the trail because their dogs were in their vehicle. Isn't it odd that it took so long to find the second woman when the search focused on such a small radius, encompassing 6,000 volunteer search hours?
Yeah, and it was right there.
They were both avid hikers and survivalists, said Tammy Kirklaw, Amy's niece. This is very strange. Why did it take them so long to find the second body?
Yeah, because they had to have passed through that
somewhere, and it's open.
Even if it's so,
I mean, if you're flying helicopters,
and I was the vicinity of where that helicopter.
You're tucked down into something,
but it doesn't sound like she was.
She was visible from the air at one point.
Sad.
Yeah,
it's weird,
creepy,
and sad and creepy.
Yeah. Next story. A frantic 4-day search was conducted for a missing Boy Scout, Brennan Hawkins, in June of 2005. 3,000 volunteers had been involved in the hunt for the 11-year-old Brennan.
Oh, he was young.
Yep. He disappeared when he became separated from his scout group while in the high Uintas, about 60 miles east of Salt Lake City at the Bear River Boy Scout Reservation. So it's next, and we'll go. Here we go. I think it's the last one. Right there. There we go. So it's a really open expanse. You've been to Salt Lake, right? The mountains are beautiful.
Gorgeous.
It's that bowl that goes around Salt Lake, right?
Yeah.
So it's up in those mountains, the high Uintas.
Okay.
He hadn't been seen. He had last been seen at approximately 5:30 p.m. near a climbing wall. He had been struggling to get his safety harness off. Fox News reported officials said Brennan disappeared somewhere along a dirt road between the camp's artificial climbing wall and the food hall.
Okay.
Where he was going to meet his friend, but never showed up. We had searchlights and helicopters and thousands of people, said Deputy Chief for the Summit County Sheriff's Office, David Booth. Deputies feared that although predators lurked in the areas, bears, cougars, and wolves, the biggest risk would have been was that he would have fallen into the cold, fast-flowing river. They were also cognizant of the fact that the year before, a 12-year-old boy called Garrett Bardsley had vanished while camping in a nearby lake, and he was never found. At another nearby lake, a mother and daughter had disappeared in 2003. Their bodies had been found 9 months later. What happened in the woods, asked People magazine, of the strange disappearance of the Boy Scout. Said his mother, I held my cell phone the entire drive. When she learned that he had vanished, I'm thinking they're going to call any minute and say they found him. I mean, how can you lose a child with 1,400 people around? Among the searchers was Kevin Bardsley, whose own 12-year-old son Garrett had vanished the year before while they were camping there. By 6 a.m. the morning after Brennan vanished, the area was literally teeming with search and rescue teams. By the third day, he still hadn't been found. They still haven't come up with anything, said his mother. Deep water rescue teams had searched the river, which was only 100 yards from the road the boy was believed to have been walking along after he got separated from his friends. Rescuers had found 3 socks and a shoe in the river, but they didn't belong to the little boy, and there was no sign of him. Then, just when his family and all the searchers had about lost hope, he was found. A 43-year-old painter from Salt Lake City, Forrest Nunley, had joined the hunt for the little boy. He found Brennan standing in the middle of the trail. Said his mother, people say the heavens are closed and God no longer answers prayers. We are here to tell you the heavens are not closed, prayers are answered, and children come home.
They found him alive?
He was just standing in the middle of the trail.
And he was alive?
Yeah.
He wasn't injured?
He was all muddy and wet, said Painter Nunley when he saw him. The little boy appeared to be physically okay, although a little delirious. He asked for some water. He survived 4 days without food, water, or shelter. He told his mother that at night he tucked his legs under his sweatshirt and curled up next to a tree. He drank water from the creeks. He told his rescuers that he had seen some searchers on horseback, but he had been scared in case they were bad guys, and he hid from them when he spotted them. Nunley said Brennan just happened to walk out on the road right where he was. He was 5 miles from the scout camp. He was just standing there in the middle of the trail.
Does he know? Does he say like?
Let's go.
Okay.
Sheriff Dave Edmonds said he thought the little boy had walked up the ridge for several miles from the point where he went missing. Curiously, early reports had said he had crossed a river and was wet when he was found, as Nunley, the painter, reported too. But later, newspaper reports stated that he had not crossed a river and was not wet. Scout leader Martin Christensen says he thinks he knows the route Brennan must have taken after he got lost. He thinks the little boy took a wrong turn from the climbing wall, walking towards his tent instead of the food hall. Then, when he realized he had gone the wrong way, he doubled back through some burned woods, but then took another wrong turn at the first trail he came to. What really surprised the searchers, though, was that he'd followed the steep trail out of a narrow river valley, where the newspaper said the scout camp was hard to miss, and then continued climbing up 400 feet over a mountain range and went farther away.
He did this.
Went
up 400 feet. Okay.
And then climbed over a mountain.
Okay.
At 11 years old.
I mean, you're going the
by
wrong
himself.
way. I've never climbed over this ridge before.
Not for a food haul.
Yeah.
Right? He went way uphill, said Scout Leader Christensen. 90% of kids who get lost will go downhill. He went uphill. His journey took him about 5 miles on foot. His parents said that they did not intend on pushing for answers from their son about his time alone in the woods and did not want to be questioned further. Brennan's mother had said, when we brought him home, his voice was different. He said he was hoarse from shouting for help. He saw a helicopter one day and yelled to be noticed. Why could nobody see him? Helicopters and 3,000 volunteers were searching. For Kevin Bardsley, who had joined the search parties to help look for Brennan, there must have been mixed emotions when he was found, because his own son, 12-year-old Garrett, had vanished the year before while they were camping there and has never been found. Loss of a Boy Scout is called unexplainable. Associated Press reported a year earlier in 2004. 12-year-old Bardsley Garrett had gone camping and fishing with his father in a scout group on August 20th, 2004, when he disappeared from Cumberland Cake in the Uinta Mountains. As the father and son were sitting together beside the lake fishing at an elevation of 10,200 feet, the boy got his shoes and pants wet, and his father told him to go back to their camp and fetch dry socks and pants. It was around 8 a.m. in the morning. His father watched as the boy walked off on the trail and into the trees. He could never imagined that would be the last time he saw his son.
God, that's horrible.
The campsite he was headed to was about a quarter of a mile from the lake, and it was a well-established path that connected with the road another quarter of a mile away. According to the family friend, the distance from where they were fishing to the camp was no more than 150 paces.
Wow.
From where he needed to go back to. The father and son were with a scout group of 7 adults and 18 boys on the scouts trip. More than 200 volunteers gathered to help the search and rescue teams search into the night for the boy after he failed to return to camp or to his father fishing. He had no provisions with him when he vanished. Searchers looked for him on foot and horseback for days in the mountainous terrain.
That's it.
The only clue they ever found was one of his socks. They found his socks in a boulder field above the lake, about a half mile from where he had sat fishing with his dad. The socks appeared that it was taken off a wet foot and wadded up, said the Summit County Sheriff Dave Edmonds. Consistent with what we know about Garrett, the sheriff said searchers would now be concentrating their efforts on searching the boulder field and close by surroundings for the boy, who presumed would be found dead. The bow hunting season had started, and the hunters were told to be on the lookout for the boy. The sheriff's office put out missing persons posters near the trailheads and handed them out to campers and hikers and hunters. We're never going to stop looking, Sheriff Edmonds said, but they must have stopped, and certainly no trace of the boy was ever found. His father, Kevin Bardsley, explained that the last time he saw his boy, he had shouted directions to him as he watched him walk off back to the camp. His son had almost taken the wrong path, but on hearing his father shout to him, he got on the right path and led into the woods. How or why he ended up in a boulder field is, as newspapers reported, unexplainable. And from one searcher who happened to be camping in the same area at the time, there is another query. Sound carries up in there in the basin. They say, as they tested this when they were there, it's as if if that's the case, why could the boy not hear any of the searchers shouting his name? The searcher said, I was camped at Cumberland when he went missing, and I spent the day helping to look for him. His group was actually camped in the meadow just up from Cumberland. This is the meadow you pass by just after going over the pass and dropping down into the Cumberland Basin. He and his father Kevin had been fishing at Cumberland, and that morning up at Cumberland, we need to stop using this word Cumberland.
Just say at the lake.
At the lake, we could hear members of his group yelling his name that morning, and he went missing. The sound carries up there. That night we spent up there after he disappeared was one of the most awful nights of my life, knowing that poor kid was out there in the cold while I was safe and warm in my sleeping bag. I went back the next week to spend another day searching. It bothers me to this day.
That poor dad. I mean, do you think he kicks himself now like I should have gone with him?
But he's probably been there many times, right? And you go,
still, that poor
so
dad.
that's part of it, right? And that's part of a lot of these stories. You're like, how does that happen? How
where
do
they
people
end up or where they find clues is the odd part. Like,
right.
Nowhere near where they were supposed to be going.
Right. There's hundreds of these stories.
Yeah.
And I'll cover some more later on in another show. But you go, it's like and these are national parks. These are well-established parks that.
So for the first two stories, they found them. For the little boy, they found him alive, right? Mm-hmm. But this one, they just never found anything but the socks.
Picked up.
Or a sock.
Picked up and disappeared. There's another story that I read earlier, not in this capture, but where a woman had driven down a wrong road. Like she shouldn't have. She had gone to this place so many times, right? And she ends up down this forest road in the middle of nowhere, gets her car stuck on like an off-roading kind of forest road, right?
On a big
car
rock
gets
or
stuck,
something.
and there's just footprints around her car, but there's no footprints leading anywhere else, and it's just her.
She got alienated.
Alienated?
Yeah, she
got abducted?
She got alienated.
I don't know. So those are the stories for today.
They're sad, but they're good. They're interesting.
It's interesting because there's tons of them where people just poof.
Yeah.
Disappear.
And not people who poofed because they didn't know what they were doing.
Like you're just camping 100 feet, 150 paces
unexplained
from where you're fishing.
They were experts. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, it's sad for those families.
Yeah.
Those are good.
They're interesting. So keep that in mind. Bring all your compasses and everything when you go hiking rather. So absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Cast.